हरिः अहं गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुं गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरं गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः. So let us recite the chapter 21 of the Buddha's teaching, and it refers about the nature of karma. As you sow the seed, so shall you reap the fruit. Samyutta Nikaya. Is one bound to reap all that one has sown in just proportion? Not necessarily. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha states, if anyone says that a man must reap according to his deeds, in that case there is no religious life, nor is an opportunity afforded for the entire extinction of sorrow. But if anyone says that what a man reaps accords with his deeds, in that case there is a religious life and an opportunity is afforded for the entire extension of sorrow. In Buddhism, therefore, there is every possibility to mold one's karma, although it is stated in the Dhammapada that not in the sky, nor in mid-ocean, nor entering a mountain cave is found that place on earth where abiding one may escape from the consequences of an evil deed. Yet one is not bound to pay all the arrears of past karma. If such were the case, emancipation would be an impossibility, eternal suffering would be the unfortunate results. One is neither the master nor the servant of this karma. Even the most vicious person can, by his own effort, become the most virtuous person. We are always becoming something, and that something depends on our own action. We may at any moment change for the better or for the worse. Even the most wicked person should not be discouraged or despised on account of his evil nature. Anguttara Nikaya Part 1 249. See Warren Buddhism in translation, page 218 and verses 127. He should be pitied, for those who censure him may also have been in that same position at a certain stage. As they have changed for the better, he may also change, perhaps sooner than they. Who knows what good karma he has in store for him? Who knows his potential goodness? Angulimala, highway robber and the murderer of more than thousands of his brethren, became an arhat and erased, so to speak, all his past mistakes. Alavaka, the fierce demon who feasted on the flesh of human beings, gave up his carnivorous habits and attained the first stage of sainthood. Ambapali, a courtesan, purified her character and attained arhatship. Ashoka, who was stigmatized Chanda, wicked, owing to his ruthlessness in expanding his empire, became Dharma Ashoka, or Ashoka, the righteous, and changed his career to such an extent that today admits the tens of thousands of names of monarchs that crowd the columns of history. Their majesties and graciousness, serenities, royal highness, and the like, the name of Ashoka shines and shines almost alone a star. These are few striking examples which serve to show how a complete reformation of character can be effected by sheer determination. It may so happen that in some cases a lesser evil may produce its due effect, while the effect of a greater evil may be minimized. The Buddha says here, O bhikshus, a certain person is not disciplined in body, in morality, in mind, in wisdom, has little good and less virtue, and lives painfully in consequences of trifling misdeeds. The footnotes refers S.G. Wells' outline of history. Even a tribal act committed by such a person will lead him to a state of misery. here, O bhikshus, a certain person is disciplined in body, in morality, in mind, in wisdom, does much good, is high souled, and lives with boundless compassion towards all. A similar evil committed by such a person repents in this life itself, and not even a small effect manifests itself after death, not to say of a great one. It is as if a man were to put a lump of salt into a small cup of water. What do you think, O Viksush? Would now the small amount of water in this cup become saltish and undrinkable? Yes, Lord. And why? Because, Lord, there was very little water in the cup, and so it became saltish and undrinkable by this lump of salt. Suppose a man were to put a lump of salt into the river Gangas. What think you, O Bhikshus? Would now the river Gangas become saltish and undrinkable by the lump of salt? Nay, indeed, Lord. And why not? Because, Lord, the mass of water in the river Gangas is great, and so it would not become saltish and undrinkable. In exactly the same way, we may have the case of a person who does some slight evil deed which brings him to a state of misery. Or again, we may have the case of another person who does the same tribal misdeeds, yet he expiates it in his present life. Not even a small effect manifests itself after death, not to say of a great one. We may have the case of a person who is cast into prison for the theft of a penny or for 100 pence, or again, we may have the case of a person who is not cast into prison for a half penny, for a penny, or for 100 pence. The reference here is to an arhat who is not subject to any future sorrow, who is cast into prison for half penny, for a penny, or for 100 pence. Whenever anyone is poor, needy, and indigent, he is cast into prison for a half penny, for a penny, or for 100 pence. Who is not cast into prison for a half penny, or for a penny, or for 100 pence. Whenever anyone is rich, wealthy, and affluent, he is not cast into prison for a half penny, for a penny, or for 100 pence. In exactly the same way, we may have the case of a person who does some slight evil deed which brings him to a state of misery. Or again, we may have the case of another person who does the same tribal misdeed and expiates it in the present life. Not even a small effect manifests itself after death, nor to say of a great one. Cause of adverse results. Good begets good, but any subsequent regrets on the part of the doer in respect of the good done deprive him of the due desirable results. The following case may be cited in illustration. On one occasion, King Pashenadi of Kosala approached the Buddha and said, Lord, here in Savatthi, a millionaire householder has died. He has left no son behind him, and now I come here after having conveyed his property to the palace. Lord, 100 lakhs in gold, to say nothing of this silver, but this millionaire householder used to eat broken scraps of food and shower gruel. And how did he clothe himself? For dress, he wore a robe of coarse hemp, and as to his coach, he drove in a broken down cart rigged of with a leaf awning. Thereupon the Buddha said, so Anguttara Nikaya, point 1, page 249c, Warren Buddhism in translation, page 227. Thereupon the Buddha said, even so, O king, even so. In a former life, O king, this millionaire householder gave alms of food to a Pakka Buddha called Tagar Sikhi. Later he repented of having given the food, saying within himself, It would be better if my servants and workmen ate the food I gave for alms. And besides in this, he deprives his brother's only son of his life for the sake of his property. And because this millionaire householder gave alms of food to the Pakka Buddha, Taga or Sikhi, in requital for this deed, he was reborn 7 times in heavenly blissful states. And by the residual result of that some action, he became 7 times a millionaire in this very Savatti. And because this millionaire householder repented of having given alms, saying to himself, "It would be better if my servants and workmen ate the food." Therefore, as a requital for this deed, he had no appreciation of good food, no appreciation of fine dresses, no appreciation of an elegant vehicle, no appreciation of the enjoyments of the five senses. And because this millionaire householder slew the only son of his brother for the sake of his property, as requital for his deed, he had to suffer many years, many hundreds of years, many thousands of years, many hundreds of thousands of years of pain in states of misery. And by the residual of that same action, he is without a son for the 7th time, and in consequence of this, had to leave his property to the royal treasury. The millionaire obtained his vast fortune as a result of the good act done in a past birth, but since he repented of his good deed, he could not fully enjoy the benefits of the riches which karma provided him. Samyutta Nikaya, point 1, page 91c, Warren Buddhism in translation, page 296, and Grimm, The Doctrine of the Buddha, page 248. Beneficent and maleficent forces in the working of karma. It should be understood that there are beneficent and maleficent forces to counteract and support this self operating law. Birth, gati, time or conditions, kala, personality or appearance, upadhi, and effort, payoga, are such aids and hindrances to the fruition of karma. If, for instance, a person is born in a noble family or in a state of happiness, his fortunate birth will sometimes hinder the fruition of his evil karma. If, on the other hand, he is born in a state of misery or in an unfortunate family, his unfavorable birth will provide an easy opportunity for his evil karma to operate. This is technically known as Gati Sampati, favorable birth, and Gati Vipatti, unfavorable birth. An intelligent person who by some good karma is born in a royal family will, on account of his noble parentage, be honored by the people. If the same person were to have a less fortunate birth, he would not be similarly treated. King Dattagamini of Ceylon, for instance, acquired evil karma by waging war with the Tamils and good karma by his various religious and social deeds. Owing to his good reproductive karma, he was born in a heavenly blissful state. Tradition says that he will have his last birth in the time of the future Buddha Maitreya. His evil karma cannot therefore successfully operate owing to his favorable birth. To cite another example, King Ajatashatru, who committed parricide, became distinguished for his piety and devotion later owing to his association with the Buddha. He now suffers in a woeful state as a result of his heinous crime. His unfavorable birth would not therefore permit him to enjoy the benefits of his good deeds. Beauty, upadhi sampatti, and ugliness, upadhi vipatti, are two other factors that hinder and favor the working of karma. If by some good karma a person obtains a happy birth but unfortunately is deformed, he will not be able fully to enjoy the beneficial results of his good karma. Even a legitimate heir of the throne may not perhaps be rise to that exalted position if he happens to be physically deformed. Beauty, on the other hand, will be an asset to the possessor. A good looking son of a poor parents may attract the attention of others and may be able to distinguish himself through their influence. Favorable time or occasion and unfavorable time or occasions, Kala Sampati and Kala Vipatti are two other factors that affect the working of karma. The one adds and the other impedes the working of karma. In the case of a famine, all without exception will be compelled to suffer the same fate. Here, the unfavorable conditions open up possibilities for evil karma to operate. The favorable conditions, on the other hand, will prevent the operation of the evil karma. Of these beneficent and maleficent forces, the most important is effort, prayoga, in the working of karma. Efforts or lack of effort plays a great part. By present effort, one can create fresh karma, new surroundings, new environment, and even a new world. Thou placed in the most favorable circumstances and provided with all facilities. If one makes no strenuous effort, one not only misses golden opportunities but may also ruin oneself. Personal efforts is essential for both worldly and spiritual progress. If a person makes no effort to cure himself of a disease or to save himself from his difficulties or to strive with diligence for his progress, his evil karma will find suitable opportunities to produce its due efforts. If, on the contrary, he endeavors on his part to surmount his difficulties, to better his circumstances, to make the best use of the rare opportunities, to strive strenuously for his real progress, his good karma will come to his successor. When shipwrecked in a deep sea, the Bodhisattva Mahajanaka made a great effort to save himself, while the others prayed to the gods and left their fate in their hands. The result was that the Bodhisattva escaped while the others were drowned. These two important factors are technically known as Prayoga Sampatti and Payoga Vipatti. Though we are neither absolutely the servants nor the masters of our karma, it is evident from these counteractive and supportive factors that the fruition of karma is influenced to some extent by external circumstances, surroundings, personality, individual striving, and the like. It is this doctrine of karma that gives consolation, hope, reliance, and moral courage to a Buddhist. When the unexpected happens, difficulties, failures, and misfortunes comfort him. The Buddhist realizes that he is reaping what he has sown and is reaping off a past step. Instead of resigning himself, leaving everything to karma, he makes a strenuous effort to pull out the weeds and sow useful seeds in the palace. The place for the future is in his hands. He who believes in karma does not condemn even the most corrupt, for they have their chance to reform themselves at any moment. Though bound to suffer in woeful states, they have the hope of attaining eternal peace. By their deeds, they create their own hells, and by their own deeds, they can also create their own heavens. A Buddhist who is fully convinced of the law of karma does not pray to another to be saved but confidently relies on himself for his emancipation. Instead of making any self surrender or propitiating any supernatural agency, he would rely on his own willpower and work incessantly for the weal and happiness of all. This belief in karma validates his effort and kindness his enthusiasm because it teaches individual responsibility. To an ordinary Buddhist, karma serves as a deterrent, while to an intellectual, it serves as an incentive to do good. This law of karma explains the problem of suffering, the mystery of the so called fate and predestination of some religious, and above all, the inequalities of mankind. We are the architects of our own fate. We are our own creator. We are our own destroyers. We build our own heavens, we build our own hells. What we think, speak, and do become our own. It is these thoughts, words, and deeds that assume the name of karma and pass from life to life, exalting and degrading us in the course of our wanderings in samsara. Says the Buddha, man's merits and the sins he here had to rout. That is the thing he owes that takes he hence. That dogs his steps like shadows in pursuit. Hence let him make good store for life elsewhere. Sure, platform in some other future world. Rewards of virtues on good beings wait. And the footnotes by H.G. Wells, Outlines of History. Further, it could be interpreted as per the will and desire of the students. So, you should practice as per your own convenience and focus on all these things that will bring suitable solution to your own sufferings or sense of understanding how you observe and what are your further learnings from these Buddha's teachings. Then, chapter 22 tells about what is the origin of life. Inconceivable is the beginning, O disciples of this faring on. The earliest point is not revealed of the running on. The faring one, or beings clogged in ignorance, tied by craving. Samyutta Nikaya, rebirth, which Buddhists do not regard as a mere theory but as a fact verifiable by evidence, forms a fundamental tenet of Buddhism. Though its good goal, nirvana, is attainable in this life itself. The Bodhisattva ideal and the correlative doctrine of freedom to attain utter perfection are based on this doctrine of rebirth. Documents regard that this belief in rebirth, viewed as transmigration or reincarnation, was accepted by philosophers like Pythagoras and Plato, poets like Shelley, Tennyson, and Wordsworth, and many ordinary people in the East as well as in the West. The Buddhist doctrine of rebirth should be differentiated from the theory of transmigration and reincarnation of other systems because Buddhism denies the existence of a transmigrating permanent soul created by God or emanating from Paramatma, divine essence. Om Paramatmane Namaha. It is karma that conditions rebirth. Past karma conditions the present birth, and present karma, in combination with past karma, conditions the future. The present is the offspring of the past and becomes, in turn, the parent of the future. The actuality of the present needs not proofs, as it is self evident. That of the past is based on memory and report, and that of the future on forethought and inferences. If we postulate a past, a present, and a future life, then we are at once faced with the problem: what is the ultimate origin of life? One is cool in attempting to solve the problem, postulates a first cause, whether as a cosmic force or as an almighty being. Even theories of big bangs are also being explained by scientists to reveal the hidden facts and mysteries related with origin of life on this planet Earth. Another school denies a first cause, for in common experience the cause over becomes the effect and the effect becomes the cause. Pratyaya Vada. In a circle of cause and effect, a first cause is inconceivable, like it is inconceivable. According to the former, life has had a beginning. According to the latter, it is beginningless. In the opinion of some, the conception of a first cause is as ridiculous as a round triangle. One might argue that life must have had a beginning in the infinite past, and that beginning or the first cause is the creator. In that case, there is no reason why the same demand may not be made of this postulated creator. With respect to this alleged first cause, men have held widely different views. In interpreting this first cause, Paramatma, Brahma, Ishvara, Jehovah, God, the Almighty, Allah, Supreme Being, Father in heaven, Creator, Order of heaven, Prime Mover, uncaused cause, divine essence, chance, Prakriti, Prakriti. It is Prakriti, Pradhana are some significant terms employed by certain religious teachers and philosophers. Happy Teachers Day to all teachers who has nurtured and served the theory and the practice of learning and development so that knowledge could be inherited by acquired means from generation to offsprings. Hinduism traces the origin of life to a mystical Paramatma from which emanate all Atmas or souls that transmigrate from existence to existence until they are finally reabsorbed in Paramatma. There is no reason to suppose that the world has a beginning at all. The idea that things must have a beginning is due to the poverty of our imagination. Bertrand Russell, Why I Am Not a Christian. One might question whether there is any possibility for these reabsorbed Atmas for a further transmigration. Christianity, admitting the possibility of an ultimate origin, attributes everything to the fiat of an Almighty God. Whoever, as Schopenhauer says, regards himself as having come out of nothing must also think that he will again become nothing. For that, an eternity has passed before he was, and then a second eternity had begun, thou which he will never cease to be, is a monstrous thought. Moreover, if birth is the absolute beginning, then death must be the absolute end. And the assumptions that man is made out of nothing leads necessarily to the assumptions that death is his absolute end. According to the theological principles, argues Spencer Lewis, man is created arbitrarily and without his desire, and at the moment of creation is either blessed or unfortunate, noble or depraved, from the first step in the process of his physical creation to the moment of his last birth, regardless of his individual desires, hopes, ambitions, struggles, or devoted prayers, such as theological fatalism. The doctrine that all men are sinners and have the essential sense of Adam is a challenge to justice, mercy, love, and omnipotent fairness. Huxley says if we are to assume that anybody has designedly, if anybody has designedly set this wonderful universe going, it is perfectly clear to me that he is no more entirely benevolent and just in any intelligible sense of the words than that he is malevolent and unjust. According to Einstein, if this being, God, is omnipotent, then every occurrence, including every human action, every human thought, and every human feeling and aspirations is also his word. How is it possible to think of holding men responsible for their deeds and thoughts before such an almighty being? Einstein is a great scientist. He deciphered the theory of energy like E is equal to mc square. Like if any mass is accelerated with the speed related with that of the speed of light, could vanish and transform into the energy. But reciprocation is yet not what we can say explored. If it would be reciprocated, then it may lead to the process of like what we can say that people could travel from one place to other with the speed of light and they could come back also. These are the postulations, but as he explains about the God, that God should be relatively owner of all the deeds happening across the globe. See the world as will and idea. In giving out punishments and rewards, he would to a certain extent be passing judgment on himself. How can this be combined with the godness and goodness and righteousness ascribed to him? According to Charles Bradlaugh, the existence of evil is a terrible stumbling block of the taste. Pain, misery, crime, poverty confront the advocate of eternal goodness and challenge with unanswerable potency his declaration of deity as all good, all wise, and all powerful. Commenting on human suffering and God, Professor J.B.S. Heldon writes either suffering is needed to perfect human character, or God is not almighty. The former theory is disproved by the fact that some people who have suffered very little but have been fortunate in their ancestry and education have very fine characters. The objection to the second is that it is only in connection with the universe as a whole that there is any intellectual gap to be filled by the postulations of a deity, and the creator could presumably create whatever he or it wanted. In Despair, a poem of his old age, Lord Tennyson thus boldly attacks God. What, as recorded in Isaiah, says, I make peace and create evil. What I should call on that infinite love that has served us so well, infinite cruelty, or rather that made a everlasting hell, made us foreknew us, foredoomed us, and does what he will with his own. Better our dead brute mother who never has heard us groan. See his essay on a plea for atheism, humanity's gain from unbelief. Asia 25:7. And dogmatic writers of old authoritatively declared that God created man after his own image. Some modern thinkers state, on the contrary, that man created God after his own image. It's unbelievable. God creates man. With the growth of civilization, man's conception of God grows more and more refined. And there is at present a tendency to substitute this personal God by an impersonal God. Voltaire states that God is the noblest creation of man. It is, however, impossible to conceive of such an omnipotent, omnipresent being, an epitome of everything that is good, either in or outside the universe. Modern science endeavors to tackle the problem with its limited systematized knowledge. According to the scientific standpoints, we are the direct products of the sperm and ovum cells provided by our parents. But science does not give a satisfactory explanation with regard to the development of the mind, which is infinitely more important than the machinery of man's material body. Scientists, while asserting omne vivum ex vivo, all life from life, maintain that mind and life evolved from the lifeless. Even uh, the classification of organism will refer more about this. You can refer to biological classes, and then you will be become more aware about this origin and diversity of life forms. Now, from this scientific standpoint, we are absolutely parent born. Thus, our lives are necessarily preceded by those of our parents, and so on. And this way, life is preceded by life until one goes back to the first protoplasm or colloid. As regards the origin of this first protoplasm or colloid, however, scientists plead ignorance. What is the attitude of Buddhism with regard to the origin of life? A strict demonstration of the existence of God is utterly impossible. Almost all the proofs that have been offered assumes in the very premises that conclusion to be proved. Reverend W. Kirkus in Orthodoxy, Scripture and Regions, page 34. We have got to recognize that evil falls within a universe for which God is responsible. We cannot absolve God for permitting the existence of sin and pain. Canon C. A. Raven, The Grounds of Christian Assumptions. So, the question is, what is the attitude of Buddhism with regard to the origin of life? At the outset, it should be stated that the Buddha does not attempt to solve all the ethical and philosophical problems that perplex mankind, nor does it deal with speculations and theories that tend neither to edification nor to enlightenment, nor does it demand blind faith from its adherents of first cows. Adherents of first cows. He is chiefly concerned with one practical and specific problem, that of suffering and its destruction. All side issues are completely ignored. On one occasion, a bhikshu named Mallunkya not content to lead the holy life and achieve his emancipation by disgrace, approached the Buddha and impatiently demanded an immediate solution of some speculative problems with the threat of discarding the robes if no satisfactory answers was given. Lord, he said, these theories have not been elucidated, have been set aside and rejected by the Blessed One, whether the world is eternal or not eternal, whether the world is finite or infinite. If the Blessed One will elucidate these questions to me, then I will lead the holy life under him. If he will not, then I will abandon the precepts and return to the lay life. If the Blessed One knows that the world is eternal, let the Blessed One elucidate to me that the world is eternal. If the Blessed One knows that the world is not eternal, let the Blessed One elucidate that the world is not eternal. In that case, suddenly, for one who does not know and lacks the insight, the only upright thing is to say, I do not know. I have not the insight. Calmly, the Buddha questioned the erring bhikshu whether his adoption of the holy life was in any way conditional upon the solution of such problem. Nay, Lord, the bhikshu replied. The Buddha then admonished him not to waste time and energy over ideal speculations detrimental to his moral progress and said, whoever Malungkya Buddha should say, I will not lead the holy life under the Blessed One until the Blessed One elucidates these questions to me. That person would die before these questions had ever been elucidated by the accomplished one. It is as if a person were pierced by an arrow thickly smeared with poison, and his friends and relatives were to procure a surgeon, and then he were to say, I will not have this arrow taken out until I know the details of the person by whom I was wounded, nature of the arrow with this which I was pierced, etc. That person would die before this would ever be known by him. In exactly the same way, whoever should say, I will not lead the holy life under the blessed one until he elucidated to me whether the world is eternal or not eternal, whether the world is finite or infinite. That person would die before these questions had ever been elucidated by the accomplished one. If it be the belief that the world is eternal, will there be the observance of the holy life? In such a case, no. If it be the belief that the world is not eternal, will there be the observance of the holy life? In that case, also, no. But whether the belief be that the world is eternal or that it is not eternal, there is birth, there is old age, there is death, the extinction of which in this life itself I make known. Malum kya putta? I have not revealed whether the world is eternal or not eternal, whether the world is finite or infinite. Why have I not revealed these? Because these are not profitable, do not concern the basis of holiness, are not conducive to aversion, to passionlessness, to cessation, to tranquility, to intuitive wisdom, to enlightenment, or to nirvana. Therefore, I have not revealed these. Majjhima Nikaya, Kulla Malankya Sutta number 63. According to Buddhism, we are born from the matrix of action, Kama Yoni. Parents merely provide us with a material layer. Therefore, being precedes being at the moment of conception. It is karma that conditions the initial consciousness that vitalizes the fetus. It is this invisible karmic energy generated from the past birth that produces mental phenomenon and the phenomena of life in an already extant physical phenomena to complete the trio that constitutes man. Dealing with the conception of beings, the Buddha states, where three are found in combination, there a germ of life is planted. If mother and father come together, but it is not the mother's fertile period, and the being to be born, Gandhava, is not present, then no germ of life is planted. If mother and father come together, and it is the mother's fertile period, but the being to be born is not present, then again no germ of life is planted. If mother and father come together, and it is the mother's fertile period, and the being to be born is present, the ovum is present, then by the conjugation of these three, a germ of life is there planted, and origin of life begins under the womb of the mother. Here, Gandhava is equal to Gantava. Does not mean a class of devas set to preside over the process of conception, but refers to a suitable being ready to be born in that particular womb. This term is used only in this particular connection and must not be mistaken for a permanent soul. For a being to be born here, somewhere a being must die. The birth of a being, which strictly means the arising of the aggregates, khandannam patu bhava, or psychophysical phenomena in this present life, correspond to the death of a being in a past life, just as in conventional term, the rising of the sun in one place means the setting of the sun in another place. Abid Maha Tanha Samkhaya Sutta number 38. Although wick and oil may be present, yet an external fire should be introduced to produce a flame. See F.L. Woodward, Some Saying of the Buddha, page 40. The enigmatic statement may be better understood by imagining life as a wave and not as a straight line. Birth and death are only two phases of the same process. Birth precedes death, and death, on the other hand, precedes birth. This constant succession of birth and death connection will with each individual like flux constitutes what is technically known as samsara, recurrent wandering. What is the ultimate origin of life? The Buddha positively declares, without cognizable beginning in is this samsara. The earliest point of being who, obstructed by ignorance and fettered by craving, wonder, and fear on, is not to be perceived. This life stream flows ad infinitum as long as it is fed with the muddy waters of ignorance and craving. When these two are completely cut off, then only does the life stream cease to flow. Rebirth ends, and in the case of Buddhas and Arhants, let us read these footnotes. अन्नमतागो यमभिकहावे संसारो उपकोति न पन्नयाति अभिजानिवारन्नं नं सत्तानं तन्हा समयोजनानं सन्धावत्तम्. Incalculable is the beginning, brethren, of this faring on. The earliest point is not revealed of the running on. The faring of beings clogged in ignorance, tied to craving. F.L. Woodward, Kinder Sayings, Part 3, page 118. Inconceivable is the beginning of this samsara, not to be discovered, a first beginning of beings who, obstructed by ignorance and ensnared by craving are hurrying and hastening through this round of rebirths. Nyantilokathera. Samsara literally means recurrent wandering. Athasalini defines samsara thus. खन्दानं पत्ते पत्ते धातु अयतनन्नकम् अभ्योच्छिन्नं वातमाना समासारोति पावुकतिम्. Samsara is the unbroken succession of aggregates, elements, and the sense basis. A first beginning of this life stream cannot be determined, as a stage cannot be perceived when this life force was not fraught with ignorance and craving. It should be understood that the Buddha has here referred merely to the beginning of the life stream of living beings. It is left to scientists to speculate on the origin and the evolution of the universe. ॐ नमो दिव्याय महादिव्याय शिवाय सत्तं नमो नमो प्रकृत्यै भद्राय नियतः प्रणतः यस्मतां सर्वस्वरूपै सर्वेशे सर्वशक्ति समन्वितं भयभ्यस्त्राहिनो देवीं दुर्गे देवी नमस्तु तेम्. ॐ सर्वमङ्गलमाङ्गल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थसाधिके शरण्ये त्र्यम्बके गौरीं नारायणी नमस्तु तेम्. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाम् सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चिदं दुःखभागं भवेदहम्. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. हरिः ॐ.